Hello, my friends. Welcome to Lindy's Magpie Reads. I've read 8 books since, in the past week, since my last Friday reads, so I've got lots to tell you about. But before I get to those, I want to say I had 2 book clubs in a row this past week. On Sunday, my feminist book club talked about Anecdotes by Catherine Mockler. This book won the City of Victoria Book Prize, and I've talked about it before on my channel. And then there's a new one that I will be talking about later on in this video, the one that my Lesbian Plus book club discussed, Libertad by Bessie Flores Zaldívar. So stay tuned for that. 4 out of the 8 books in this video were recommended by other booktubers. I love watching end of the year best of videos, and I find some great recommendations from you people out there. So I will mention as I get to them who recommended them. And so out of these 8 books, we've got settings of Northern England, Estonia, Croatia, Iran, Palestine, Honduras, and even the ancient Mediterranean. And I can't imagine ever running out of suggestions of which books I might want to read. But of course, I had to look at the latest long list from the Dublin Literary Awards. I noticed that there are 7 Canadian titles on that list, and I think I've read about 13 of them. It's a long list. There's about 70 books, I think. Plenty to choose from. I'll include a link to that long list down below in the show notes. And the American Library Association Media Awards were also announced this past week, and I will talk about those, I think, at the end of this video. And one more fun thing that I did this past week was attend a dance performance by an Indigenous dance group called Damelahamid. And they did the show Raven Mother that was created in honor of one of their elders. So the Damelahamid dance group is all one family, and the elder, Margaret Harris, who they are honoring, who died in 2020, is from a Swampy Cree nation, and she married into a Gitsan family, so they grew up with West Coast traditions. The regalia in this dance was fantastic. This is from the dance program. Those hats are typical West Coast nation hats. And when I was in New York in December at the Met, I saw an outfit that had been created by Dorothy Grant. I have talked about Dorothy Grant's museum collection book, which I do recommend. I saw her talk about it at the Vancouver Writers Fest, and I'm happy to talk about it again. The resurgence of Indigenous fashion is just so inspiring. All right, now on to the books that I've read. First up, The Dam. It's written by David Almond with illustrations by Levi Pinfold. David Almond is from the north of England. He's quite well known for the Geordie dialect that he includes in his books. His first novel was Skellig, that came out in 1998. It won multiple awards. And Levi Pinfold, the Australian illustrator, is also well recognized. I think he received awards for his book, The Black Dog. And I heard about this book from Roz of Scallydandling About the Books. It was an honorable mention from her nonfiction video that she did. I will include a link below because this is based on a true story. A man and his daughter went to a village that had been emptied on account of a dam that was going to be flooding a valley and covering those houses. So I expected the elegiac quality of this book, but I hadn't expected that there was also praise of the beauty of the new lake that was formed. There's a line in here that moves from the physical world to the emotional world in such a special way. I'll read that line to you. The music is inside us. It flows through all the dams in us. And the illustrations are exquisite. This book is suitable for all ages. Next up is an audiobook, Crossings, How Road Ecology is Shaping the Future of Our Planet by Ben Goldfarb. And the audiobook is read by Malcolm Hillgartner. It was Katya of Page Turners who had this in her best of 2024. I will link her video below. So Goldfarb is an American journalist who is looking at how the 40 million miles of roads across planet Earth affect wildlife. The statistics are grim. There are details that can be pretty depressing. So if you can't bear to hear about dead animals, you want to stay away from this one. Goldfarb does use humor to kind of leaven things in between, but it's not only wildlife. So here's a statistic. Every day, some 600,000 people around the world perish in vehicle crashes, which means that in 30 seconds, at least one driver, passenger, cyclist, or pedestrian has lost their life. Name a species of charismatic fauna and road infrastructure likely poses a threat to its survival. I learned a lot from this. Maybe some things I would rather not have known, but still I was surprised. Like, for example, in the Nez Perce Clearwater National Forest in Idaho, Goldfarb talked to a biologist who said that she had bushwhacked from a ridgeline to a creek, and over the distance of 1 mile, she crossed the vestiges of 33 roads. And she said she and her colleagues joke that the loggers must have driven to every tree. In 2010, there was a wildlife biologist in Wyoming who discovered that a herd of mule deer migrated every year. And up until that point, they had no idea, but they put tracking collars on them, and they learned that this herd travels 300 miles round trip, which is the longest known ungulate migration in the contiguous United States. We still have so much to learn. He talked a lot about wildlife crossings so that wildlife of all kinds could safely get across roads, either above or below. There was some really depressing news about human nature and how some people hit wildlife on purpose They did a study in Canada that found that 3% of drivers purposely swerved to hit a rubber turtle or snake that was on the road. In Tasmania, the farmers there said they teach their children to hit wildlife when they're learning how to drive because it's a fact of life. They have to get used to killing wildlife. This is the kind of thing that could be hard on your heart. There's a great quote from Aldo Leopold. To build a road is so much simpler than to think of what the country really needs. The next book is also in audio format. It's Glorious Exploits by Ferdia Lennon. The book is read by the author, who is from Dublin, and it's read with this very Irish accent. The book won the Waterstones Debut Fiction Prize, and I was convinced to read it, although I'd heard about it before, but the person who convinced me to read it was Ben from Ben Reads Good. It was in his Best of 2024. So the author, Lennon, was born to an Irish father and a Libyan mother, and there is an important secondary character in the novel who is an enslaved Libyan woman. This is set in 412 before Common Era on the island of Sicily. So this is happening as part of the Peloponnesian War, and the Syracusans have captured a whole bunch of Athenian soldiers, and they have cooped them up inside a limestone quarry where they are leaving them to starve. So at the beginning, we meet the two main protagonists, a couple of friends, Agelon and Lampo, who are out of work. And Agelon says, let's go feed the Athenians. Here's a sample from near the opening of the book. The sun is blazing all white and tiny in the sky, and you can feel it burn from the stones as you walk. Even the lizards are hiding, poking their heads from under rocks and trees, as if to say, Apollo, are you fucking joking? Sometimes I think the factory closing up is my chance to shake things up, that I might just leave Syracuse and find myself a little place by the sea. No more dark rooms, clay and red hands, but the sea and the sky. And when I come home with a fresh catch slung over my shoulder, she'll be there, whoever she may be, waiting for me and laughing. So this is told in the voice of Lampo. He's a kind of a sorry specimen, and initially I wasn't sure I wanted to be in his head, but his character develops so much over the course of the novel, and I love it when that happens. And I also like the plot, which has to do with Agelon loving the words of the playwright Euripides, and he gets the Athenians to recite lines from Euripides, and if they do, then they get food. And they decide to get the prisoners to put on a play. It's a combination of Euripides' Medea and the Trojan Women. And I could relate so much because I recently read a graphic novel version of Medea, seen from Medea's viewpoint, which I love. That was done by Blandine Le Calais. I will include the information below. And a while back, a graphic novel version of Trojan Women that was translated from ancient Greek by Anne Carson, and the illustrations or the artwork is by Rosanna Bruno. So in this book, the whole power of theater and the senselessness of war just comes through so strong. And here's the final line. The world is a wounded thing and can only be healed by story. Loved it. And next is another book about the effects of war, Petar and Liza. It's by Miroslav Sekulic-Struja. And it's very heavy, so I am going to set it down while I talk about it. It's translated from Croatian by Jenna Allen and Ana Šetka. So Sekulic-Struja is a Croatian cartoonist, and he says in a little note at the beginning that this is set somewhere in the ex-Yugoslavia and takes place from the 80s to now. Petar is a writer, kind of a bohemian, and we see a little bit of him being a soldier in the war, but mostly it's about returning back into regular life after the war is over. But the transition is a struggle, and Petar's mental health is so uncertain. The sense of aimlessness and how do you live in a broken system, it makes this a very melancholy story, and yet there's humor throughout because of the art. The pages are just full of details of people everywhere. The art reminded me of a modern day Bruegel, something like that. You could spend a lot of time seeing what each person is doing on the page. Sometimes we see things from Petar's point of view. He meets this woman, Liza, and for a time they're really happy together, although they move a lot. So here we have some input from one of Petar's friends. This is somebody that was in the army with Petar, and now she's a trans woman, Francesca. All those moves, it made my head spin. Back then, they moved, I don't know, so many times I lost count, for any old reason. Sometimes it was quite the obstacle course to find their new address. And you'll notice, in addition to a woman leaning out of the window and smoking, it looks like the baby in that carriage is actually an old man wearing a kind of beret cap and smoking. So yeah, these little weird details, and even this opening image from the title page shows the disarray of living with a mind in turmoil, person who's somehow lost. And I wept. This book made me cry, and I loved it. Okay, here's another sad one. Pistachios in My Pocket by Sareh Farmand. I heard about this from Jenny Johnston back in 2023, the end of 2023, in her best books. I finally got to it. I'm so glad that I finally did. Farmand is an Iranian Canadian. She was born in Tehran, and she was either 2 or 3 years old when her parents had to flee the revolution and the coming to power of the Ayatollah Khomeini. There are color images in here, including this photograph of the author with her parents. They went to Berlin first as refugees, and then Rome, and then finally Canada. There are also some gorgeous artwork, including the cover. The artist is Nazli Atea. So these are poems that all together form a memoir, and she's done an unusual thing in that often she's taking on the voice of a different family member, her mother, her grandmother, her father. So we get a kind of a rounded viewpoint of what it's like to have to leave your home country, to long for it, to be misunderstood in your new place, like when the movie Not Without My Daughter came out, and she wanted to tell people, all Iranians are not like that. I'll read you a little bit. Oh, we're Italian. My older cousins used to pretend they were Italian. It made everyone feel more at ease. Unless you gave off mafioso vibes, which my cousins definitely did not. They were the sweet, preppy, tennis player type. There was nothing to fear in an Italian. Italians have pasta. It's amore and pious nuns. Iranians have sour cherries, hell be to the U.S. chants, and Khomeini, the creepiest looking leader alongside Sauron and Voldemort. It was safer to say you were Italian. Nobody asked, "Have you seen Not Without My Daughter?" Her mother's efforts to preserve their language, their culture, poetry, food, all of that is encompassed in here, and it's a beautiful collection, just so full of heart. I've got another heartbreaking poetry collection, Something About Living by Lena, Khalaf, Tuffaha. She is a Palestinian American, and this book won the National Book Award for Poetry in 2024. These poems covered the history of Palestine, the experience of the diaspora. There is rage, sadness. I could only read 1 or 2 poems at a time and had to take breaks in between. There's that much emotion in them, and I really want to give you a taste. Here's a couple of lines from Portraits of Light. Sick with yesterday's fever, a newspaper yellows in the stairwell. This poem is, on the 30th Friday, we consider plurals. At the border, a flock of journalists. A sacrifice of tires burned behind us. Beneath the picnic tents, a funeral of families. What else will we become in Gaza if we gather, if we carry our voices to the razored edge? We were met by a gallop of prayers, clamoring recitatives puncturing the shroud of humid air. We were met by a delirium of greetings. Peace be upon us, surreal between embraces, the horizon locked and loaded. What is upon us will require mercy. Let the plural be a return of us, a carnage of blessings, bodies freed from broken promises, from the encumbrances of waiting. And here's one last little bit. Let the stars fall. I have no idea what hope is, but our people have taught me a million ways to love. Such a great collection. I love this. I've already bought a copy and sent it off to a friend of mine. So next I have the book that I mentioned at the start of this video. It was one that we read for my Lesbian Plus book club, Libertad by Bessie Flores Zaldívar. And I listened to the audiobook. It was read by Spring Inés Peña. This is a queer YA coming of age set in Honduras during the lead up to a rigged election. There are lots of protests, and Libertad has an older brother who's 25, and he's a university student who is involved in the protests. She has a younger brother who's 12. The depiction of the family, they, with their mother, live with their grandmother. The family dynamics are just so believable, so real. This is the kind of book where you just can't help but root for the central character. So she realizes that she's in love with her best friend, and she's also attracted to this other girl, and there's so much homophobia in the country, and she just is thinking, I've got to get out of this place. But some of the other young people that she meets are determined to change things around in their country and fight against injustice. So that a question about how can you be okay with a country and love a country that has not treated you well? There's just so much in this book that is applicable to life today in Canada, in the US. How do you deal with ideological divides within a family, because Libertad's grandmother is in favor of the autocratic government that they've got, because it helps business. And meanwhile, journalists and students are being disappeared, murdered. Yeah, all of this is going on. And for a book with so many serious social issues, one of the things that really amazed me is the feel-good sense that you get by the end of the novel. Yeah, it's so well done. Yes, I highly recommend this book. And I don't think I've ever read a novel like this or set in Honduras. So it was eye-opening in that way too. All of the senses are evoked, the smells of gasoline and flowers and food and sweat, the steamy, hot weather kind of amplifies the oppressive political situation. It's just great. Loved it. Now, at the American Library Association Media Awards, Libertad received the Belpré YA honor, and there were 8 books that I already talked about on my channel in the past year that were recognized with various awards. I'll just quickly mention them. First State of Being by Erin Entrada Kelly won the Newbery Award. Noodles on a Bicycle, illustrated by Gracie Zhang, written by Keo McClear, was a Caldecott Honor winner. Black Girl, You Are Atlas by Renee Watson, won the Coretta Scott King Honor. And it also got a Odyssey honor. The Odyssey Award is for audiobooks, and in that format, it was read by the author. The winner of the Odyssey Awards was How the Boogeyman Became a Poet by Tony Keith Jr., also narrated by the author. The Deep Dark by Molly Knox Ostertag, that one won a Prince honor. Lunar Boy by Jess and Sin Winbowo won the Stonewall Award. That's for queer literature. And The Forbidden Book by Sasha Lamb won a silver medal at the Sydney Taylor Awards. And because of these awards, I have put other books on hold from the library. You'll be hearing about those. One of them I have already read, John the Skeleton by Trinu Lan, and illustrated by Marja-Liisa Platz, and it was translated from Estonian by Adam Cullen. And this one won the Mildred Batchelder Award for translated children's literature. So the author, Lan, she writes at the back that she loves living in the wild more than anything else. And she said this book is based on a true story. So it's about a skeleton that had been used in a school for science classes. And when it was retired, it came to stay with them. So she has a husband and 5 kids. And their home language is Voro, which I learned is something spoken by 70,000 people. And so the author does have some books that are bilingual in Estonian and Voro. The illustrator has illustrated some 50 or more books for children, and her art has got just the one color, this happy hot pink color. And in this book that's about death and dying, it just adds such a whimsical touch and a matter-of-fact sense of death being an everyday aspect to life. So the story is structured in a series of really short little incidents in the life of this skeleton named John. He goes to live with a couple of old people, Grandma and Grandpa, and we see them in the end papers here. And also at the back. This is such an excellent gateway to talking about death and dying with children. It is suitable for about ages 6 and up. And it reminded me of John Clausen's book, The Skull, and also Wolf Elbrook's Duck, Death, and the Tulip, which I also recommend. So that is all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate hearing from you, so please do say hello in the comments down below. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you plan to pick any of them up. I'd love to hear about that too. And until the next video, I wish you happy reading, everybody. Bye for now.